Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7 here on Broadcasting Scotland. My name's Kenny McBride and I'm joined this evening via Skype by Sam Payton from the Save Loch Lomond campaign. Sam, how are you tonight?
I'm fine, Kenny. How are you?
I'm not bad at all. And we start off tonight, as always, with our coronavirus update. And as of 2 p.m. today in Scotland, there has been a total of 32,855 coronavirus tests concluded. Of these, 26,497 were confirmed negative and 6,358 tests were positive. There were 196 patients in intensive care last night, with 192 of those having tested positive. This marks an increase of 291 confirmed cases since yesterday. The number of patients in Scotland who have died from complications caused by the coronavirus infection has sadly risen to 615. The latest UK figures available show that 12,107 patients who tested positive for COVID-19 have sadly died from their illness. A total of 302,599 people have been tested, of which 208,726 were negative and 93,873 were confirmed positive. The Four Nations strategy for managing the coronavirus pandemic across the UK has been called into question after companies based in England selling personal protective equipment for care home workers claimed that Public Health England had instructed them not to sell their goods outside England. Kerry Roberts, a care home owner in Wales, raised concerns when one company, Gompels Healthcare, posted a notice on its website that products could only be delivered to those operating in England. Another company told her that customers in England had to take priority, but that she could buy anything that was left over. Gompels has confirmed this story in a press statement, saying, "We have been told that there are alternative arrangements in place for Wales and Scotland, but we have not been able to find out what they are. Please do not think this is us discriminating against our lovely and loyal Welsh and Scottish customers." Scottish Health Service Clinical Director Jason Leach told the BBC this morning that the claims were rubbish. Chancellor of the Exchequer Rishi Sunak also rejected the claims at the UK government press conference this afternoon. And also this afternoon, Scottish Health Secretary Jeane Freeman tweeted that she had received assurances from Matt Hancock, the English Health Minister, that suppliers had not been instructed to divert supplies away from Scotland. However, Donald McCaskill, head of the umbrella body Scottish Care, said there was still evidence that care providers did not have adequate access to PPE because all supplies were going to the NHS on a Four Nations basis and care homes were being left out. Meanwhile, we checked just before going on air this evening and we noticed that the notice on the Gompels website is still there. So as far as Gompels is concerned, apparently nothing has changed. And Sam, this is pretty shocking if it's true, isn't it?
It is. It's a sorry state of affairs, isn't it, Kenny? In the fact that, first of all, you've got Jeane Freeman, Jason Leach, Sunak, and all that trying to deny and saying this is a load of rubbish. But then in the middle, there's Gompels being kind of caught out, where they're not caught out, but they've been put in a position where they've been told they're not allowed to supply Wales and Scotland. And as a business, I don't see why a business would turn round and make those claims, if it wasn't true. But from what I was doing a wee bit of kind of research on this as well, and they're saying that it's the masks and the aprons that are under contract with NHS England. So it's a bit confusing. There's not a kind of straight answer coming out right now. And the fact that the care homes as well are not getting PPE, getting through to them, it's just an absolute sorry mess. And I mean, the end of the day, there needs to be kind of questions answered as to why this is happening and why a business is under the belief that they're not allowed to supply their customers in Scotland and Wales. It's just a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. I mean,
Yeah, it does very much seem that Gompels were told by Public Health England. As you say, it would be very strange for a company to say we're not selling something for any reason if they're a business that wants to sell as much as they can. What do you think this says about the whole four nations approach? Because one of the things we always say about the structure of the UK is that it's very Anglo-centric, very London-centric a lot of the time. Do you think this is one of those occasions where the Scottish Government, the Welsh Government, the Northern Irish executive really needed to take their own path and pursue their own supplies rather than pursuing this four-nation approach?
Yeah, I think we kind of all said that at the beginning, because the thing with the COVID-19 approach from the UK as a whole has been very slow. It's been very sluggish. We've been aware of this for quite a few months. So where's all the kind of people stockpiling the masks and all the PPE equipment? Whether it's gloves, masks, aprons, and the shields and things. Why was this not all done? Why was it not all done in January? Why did they not start doing this in January? Why have they waited until they get their first kind of set of cases in the UK? But yeah, we always knew that if doing this kind of centralised approach to buying and dealing with PPE and other factors in this, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales are behind England, because even just the kind of language they use when you're listening to the media press releases and things like that, it's all kind of London centralised or England based. There's not a lot when you're listening to the UK government press release. There's not much talk about what Scotland's doing or what. Yeah, okay, we have our own press releases, but it's all very England based, very London based as well.
Yeah.
And about how London is doing. And I mean, it's as if they've forgotten about the various regions within England as well. So I'm not really surprised. And yeah, the other nations should have kind of broke away and making these decisions, because at the end of the day, we're all slightly different and how we live, and we're especially we're all slightly different. Our NHSs work independently, so our healthcare system works independently from central government. So I think I think they've made a big mistake than allowing the UK government to take the lead in this. I really do.
Well, moving on to a somewhat related story, the SNP has demanded a full explanation from the UK government over its reported failure to join a Europe-wide procurement scheme for personal protective equipment for frontline health and social care workers tackling the coronavirus pandemic. The Guardian newspaper reported that UK ministers and officials missed 3 chances to be part of the bulk buying effort for PPE, which follows a similar failure to be part of joint procurement for medical ventilators. The schemes were not confined to EU member states and were open to the UK to participate. The PPE programme is now set to deliver more than £1 billion worth of personal protective equipment to European doctors and nurses. The UK government is claiming that it was only aware after the tenders had been put out. But after being informed of the programme and the UK's eligibility, UK government officials failed to attend a crucial meeting of health officials to set out their requirements for future purposes. Dr Philippa Whitford MP, the SNP's shadow health spokesperson, said, "The UK government must give a full and proper explanation of their failure to be part of Europe-wide joint procurement of PPE. Nothing less than full disclosure will do. Why exactly did ministers fail to place orders which would have seen UK doctors, nurses and care staff able to receive the PPE they need? The safety of our valued NHS staff is paramount, and it would be unforgivable if they were to suffer as a result of UK government incompetence, or, even worse, if ideological considerations played any part in this decision." And again, if we're talking about Scotland or Wales or the north of Ireland pursuing its own strategy, we're hobbled by things like this, where Europe-wide decisions are taken at a UK level. And in this case, whether through incompetence or through ideology, the UK government just didn't get involved at an early enough stage to be part of these big efforts. What do you think we can take from this story?
Well, are you really surprised, that this has happened? It's just absolutely whether it's ideology or not, it's just disgusting, and it just shows you the incompetence of the UK government dealing, and us being able to trust the UK government and being able to deal with this. The more and more people you kind of speak to through social media, they're saying that the trust of the UK government must be at an all-time low. I would be shocked at anybody at this moment in time saying they still trust them, because there just seems to be so many mistakes, so many opportunities missed to save people and protect people. So is it deliberate? Is it, I don't know, arrogance? I don't know.
Yeah, these are questions that we often ask about the UK government on this show. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of investigation to be done after this to see just how some of these decisions were made. Moving on, though. Sorry, say that again.
Yeah. I think there needs to, after this, about why certain decisions were made, why certain opportunities were missed. There needs to be some sort of investigation or inquiry into this afterwards, definitely.
Well, we will obviously pursue it as best we can from the journalism side here. Moving on, though, the United Kingdom's death toll from the coronavirus could run 15% higher than official figures have indicated so far, according to broader data that includes deaths in the community, such as in nursing homes. Even before the new figures, the official UK death toll was the 5th highest globally, and a senior scientific advisor to the UK government has said the country risks becoming the worst hit in Europe. The Office for National Statistics said today that 5,979 people in England had died by April 3rd with COVID-19, the respiratory disease caused by the virus mentioned in their death certificates. This is 15% higher than the NHS numbers, as they include all mentions of COVID-19 on the death certificate, including suspected COVID-19 as well as deaths in the community, ONS statistician Nick Stripe said. The numbers, which reflect both deaths caused primarily by COVID-19 and where it was mentioned as a factor, show just how limited official British data has been so far. Daily figures published by the Health Ministry record only COVID-19 deaths recorded in hospital. Previous data from the National Health Service in England that only covered deaths in English hospitals showed 5,186 people had died during the period to April 3rd. Including Wales, some 6,235 people had died by April 3rd, the ONS said. Separate data from Scotland last week showed 354 deaths involved COVID-19 as of April 5th. And in Northern Ireland, the toll stood at 79 as of April 3rd. And Sam, we're always told, there are three kinds of lies, damned lies, and statistics. And here we're seeing, particularly in England, the figures are being updated now in Scotland, but the figures in England still not showing deaths in care homes or deaths in the community where a positive test hasn't been done. How big of a scandal do you think it is that we're not getting a really accurate picture of how many people are dying of this particular disease?
I think basically they're trying to hide the true scale of the virus and what's happening. I was watching the UK press release at tea time, and some of the journalists were actually asking them these questions, and the responses were quite, they were kind of fleeting by, because they were showing a graph showing France's figures, which includes care homes and things like that. And then they were trying to compare that with the figures for England, which don't. And the response to it was, but they've got tens of thousands, lots and lots of care homes, and it's very difficult to get the figures. To me, that's just, come on off it. You must have a way of getting figures from care homes. If it wasn't this pandemic, there must be a way, just that's there already for to record deaths in care homes for the care commissions and things like that. So I think there's something, maybe it's just me, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking out of the box here, but to then turn around and say they're not able to, and there's so much data, and coming away with all these feeble excuses, that's just feeble excuses. why is the data not there? We need to have that data. I mean, when I was looking it up, 2 of the care companies down in England, which serve 3% of the care homes in England alone, have already reported 521 deaths. Now, they can provide these figures themselves. So why has the government not got these figures? And that's a kind of question, why is the government not recording it? Why is NHS England not adding it into their figures? So there's a reason.
Yeah.
It'd just be nice to know what the reason is.
Yeah, I mean the figures overall, I think in Scotland, as I say, there has been new statistics published over the last week or so. But generally speaking, I think there has been a question mark over a lot of these statistics. And I think quite probably when we come to the end of the lockdown, when we come out of the pandemic, hopefully at some point, I think we will see a lot of statistics that end up being a wee bit surprising to us. We do have to move on though, unfortunately. And additional to support to help people look after their mental health and well-being during and after the coronavirus pandemic has been announced by First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. The support includes an investment of more than £1 million towards the expansion of the Distress Brief Intervention, or DBI, programme to help people in distress, and the launch of a new mental health marketing campaign across television, radio, print and online. The DBI programme, which was previously operating in 4 pilot areas, will roll out across Scotland, giving people over the age of 16 who are in emotional distress due to COVID-19 the opportunity to speak to specially trained staff. People who are in distress but do not need clinical intervention will be referred to the DBI programme by frontline staff, including NHS24. The first phase of the new mental health campaign will launch this month and provide people with practical advice on coping with the current restrictions. Signposting to existing advice will be included, and those who need extra support will be directed to NHS Inform as a key information resource, as well as helplines operated by NHS24, Breathing Space, SAMH and the Samaritans. And Sam, we were talking just briefly before we came on air about how difficult it is to kind of keep your mental health together when you're stuck in the house, when maybe your income is uncertain, your job is maybe on the line. You're dealing with the pressures of looking after children that you're maybe not used to looking after during school time. What do you think of this announcement from the First Minister?
Obviously, I welcome it because it's greatly needed at this moment in time. £1 million to expand sounds a lot of money, but is it going to be enough? That's the thing. But no, I do welcome it because I know there is people in the community who are suffering mentally at the moment. People who have existing mental health conditions who have not been able to get any support or help, have not been able to contact the mental health teams. And I imagine at the moment they will be inundated right now because people will be really struggling. Because what's happening, nobody's ever experienced this really. And, I mean, one of the things that we've been doing, me and my friends and people that I work with and things like that, I've been doing is just making a point of keeping in touch with each other, even if it's learning how to use Skype and video messaging, things like that, and being able to just sit and have that interaction with people. Because it's okay picking up the phone, but sometimes you need to actually see people. And so it's worth, maybe if there's somebody you're worried about, send them a wee video, try and kind of connect to them through video link and have that conversation and just have a blather. And it's so important. And the thing is, there's so many extra stresses at the moment because parents have got the extra stress of homeschooling their kids just now, which that terrifies a lot of parents, but again, it's trying not to stress too much. Kids are pretty, I know my wee one is kind of doing not bad. He's actually doing okay. He's coping quite well. And it's just, just trying to make life as simple as possible and try and, even though we're mean, I'm self-employed. I've literally not got an income at the moment. But just getting by and just being, and just trying to kind of plod along and try, it's tough, but there is way. But I think importantly as well is keep your sense of humour and, allow yourself to have a giggle and things. We at the weekend we decorated outside our house. We chalk pavement chalk and things, and then when we done it, the other neighbours went out and done it, and and just things like that. Because sometimes it just takes a wee bit of silliness just to kind of take the seriousness of what's happening, because it is quite serious and it's quite stressful. So sometimes you just need that kind of bit of silliness. So if it's, I don't know, painting your house or make up a silly dance with the kids or something, just to get through it. And yet talk to people, and that's the most important thing, is talking to people and keep communicating. And because I think it's so easy just now for people to literally self-isolate, where they just shut the whole world out. So it's good to see that they're going to be expanding the kind of supports network that's out there for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all need to kind of lean on each other a wee bit during this this crisis, as you say. Keep talking, keep laughing. It's the only way we're going to get through it. Moving on now, though, the SNP has said that the UK government must deliver comprehensive financial support to ensure no one is left behind, following the publication of coronavirus scenarios by the Office for Budget Responsibility. Ian Blackford MP said the OBR scenarios underlined the need for the UK government to fix the serious gaps in the support being offered to millions of people who have lost their jobs or seen their incomes reduced. The SNP Westminster leader renewed calls for a guaranteed minimum income and warned the UK government against lifting the lockdown too early, saying protecting lives must be the priority. Commenting, Ian Blackford MP said this analysis demonstrates the huge damage coronavirus is doing to our economy and the urgent need for the UK government to fix the serious gaps in financial support for the millions of people who have lost their jobs or seen their incomes reduced. The Chancellor must ensure that businesses have access to cash to stay afloat and that all households get the support they need. This must include a guaranteed minimum income for everyone and strengthened welfare protections so no one is left behind. And Sam, this is a story we've been talking about on and off on this channel for years, certainly for the last few months during this crisis. What do you think the chances are of Ian Blackford's call for a guaranteed minimum income ever getting heard by the British government?
Sorry to say, Kenny, but I think it's fell on deaf ears, because when I was watching the UK government press release, the Chancellor Sunak was saying that we've just got to accept that there'll be some people are left behind, and they basically, with the banks and things and the loans and the grants, he was kind of feathering the cap. I've done this, I've done that, and this is wonderful, and we'll bounce back. The economy will bounce back. So I don't think. Ian Blackford, hat off to him, he's doing his best. We do need universal basic income. Nobody should be left behind, but this is the Tory party. I'm afraid I think there's going to be people left behind. They don't think like the rest of us, as long as they're all right. A bit.
Yeah,
I don't think.
We saw the Pope on Easter Sunday say that he was interested in the idea of a universal basic income.
Yes.
So that certainly kind of changes some minds, I'm sure. We're seeing discussion about it in Spain. We've seen a lot of discussion about it in the US over the last year, particularly led by Andrew Yang. But now a lot of people especially on the left in the States, are talking about universal basic income as a serious idea.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any chance that we figure out a way to do it here?
Well, I think we need, as a nation, a country, we need to break away from the UK. That's the only way we're going to be able to do it, because unfortunately with the UK government, as they've already proved, they do things their way, regardless what everybody else is doing. And it was quite unusual to see the Pope making that comment, getting involved in politics, because normally, he doesn't do that. And it was quite good to see him getting involved in making the comment about universal basic income. But no, I think the only way nobody's going to be left behind in Scotland, I'm sorry to say, is basically if we pull away from the UK, because I have no trust and no faith whatsoever in the UK government and doing that. I really don't in any shape or form. They have, the last couple of months, the way they've acted and the way they've behaved regarding the coronavirus, even with the Brexit, it's just been despicable. It's yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll end up going in a rant and going in my soapbox. I'm probably better off stopping there. But you know what's happened now is just a kind of tip of the iceberg and no, I think I've got no faith in them at all.
Yeah, we have heard Nicola Sturgeon, amongst others, Kate Forbes, Alison Thewlis, all these people in the SNP and the Scottish Government talking about how they would love to do it in Scotland, but without full control over tax and the welfare system, it's just not practical. So yeah, that may be the way forward. Hopefully, at some point soon, country governments all over the world will see that it's a good idea. But until then, we will just keep reporting on these updates when we get them. Moving on though. Prospective university and college students are being reassured that they will receive their results on time, and universities and colleges will assess qualifications as part of the admissions process. Minister for Further Education and Higher Education, Richard Lochhead, has written to students emphasising that their educational futures are being protected during the coronavirus pandemic. Universities are also being urged to observe a moratorium on changing offers made to undergraduate students. In a letter to principals, Mr Lochhead underlined the need for a stable higher education admissions system while the country collectively responds to the challenges of the coronavirus. Mr Lochhead said, "I understand that many students who have applied to university or college this year will be anxious that school exams cannot go ahead as a result of the impact of COVID-19. The Scottish Government took this action to prioritise the health and well-being of our children, young people and staff. While the protection of life remains our utmost priority, I am absolutely clear that we must ensure that the interests and life chances of our young people are protected and that they will be rewarded for their hard work. Despite the disruption, students will quite rightly have their achievements recognised and gain the qualifications and awards that they deserve after so many years of hard work. I am also confident that institutions will act responsibly and recognise that our shared priority now must be to ensure the stabilisation of the higher education admission system, which is in all of our interests, whilst we respond to the unprecedented challenges COVID-19 presents." And obviously your wee one is not quite at the age where this is going to affect him, but what do you make of this announcement from Richard Lochhead that people are still going to get results of their qualifications even if they're not able to sit the exams?
I think they've got to. They've no choice, really. I mean, crikey, my other wee one is 19, and I remember the kind of anticipation, the stress, everything that went with waiting for the qualification, the certificate to come through to see what he'd done, how well he'd done in his exams. And it's only fair. They've got to, they can't just leave them with nothing. They've got to give them qualifications that they deserve because they have worked hard. And a lot of them have studied a lot and they've put a lot into it. So it's only fair, and I hope the colleges and universities take a bit of common sense, and when the young ones are applying for courses to move on to further education, I'm hoping, and I would imagine so, that they would take this into consideration, the fact that, they've not been able to sit their exams, and I don't know, it's a tough one. I feel sorry for the young ones. I feel sorry for these kids at the moment. It's just going through exams in this part of life is confusing at the best of times without, this added onto it. It's a shame. So I hope they sort it out and they get it sorted. And yeah, the kids that deserve, all the kids deserve to get their qualifications. They do. They've worked hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on once again, potential options for progressing serious criminal cases during the coronavirus emergency and its aftermath have been published by the Scottish Government. These options form part of our discussion paper, which will inform an upcoming meeting between Justice Secretary Humza Yousaf and key stakeholders on the most effective approach to manage the impact of the outbreak on the criminal justice system. Key justice stakeholders, including representatives of political parties, have been invited to a first virtual roundtable discussion on Wednesday the 15th of April to discuss the ongoing suspension of judge and jury court trials. The suspension was put in place to meet social distancing guidance and safeguard public health. The new paper outlines the potential scale of the issues faced as a result of this suspension and outlines a number of different options which may provide solutions to these unprecedented circumstances. These include smaller numbers of jurors, larger non-court locations to facilitate social distancing measures within existing court facilities, remote video juries linked to the court, testing of jurors and other court attendees for COVID-19, measures to enable faster progression of jury trials to address the backlog following easing of public health restrictions, judge-only trials and the potential safeguards that would be necessary for that, adjusting the sentencing powers of sheriff courts, and finally, the possibility of maintaining the status quo, that is to say, not making any temporary changes. And Sam, this follows on from the Scottish Government's coronavirus bill that was passed a couple of weeks ago. The plan to suspend jury trials was included in that and then was taken out after the other parties in the Scottish Parliament objected. What do you think the path forward is for Humza Yousaf and for justice in Scotland?
Oh, I
It's a
don't
big
know.
question for you there. Sorry.
It's quite difficult, isn't it? I think to take out the juries was a grave mistake. It wouldn't work. Couldn't do that. But in terms of way forward, they've got to find a way forward. At the end of the day, the justice system doesn't stop just because the pandemic. It's got to carry on. So I hope they come up with a really, really good plan and a really good way of doing it, whether it's doing it virtually. It's maybe an idea. I don't know.
Yeah. And do you have hope that this will? I mean, there is obviously the possibility that by the time this gets passed, we're at the point where we're able to start lifting some of the restrictions anyway. So it might not come to anything. Do you think there is maybe an argument just for doing nothing and just waiting to see what happens?
Yeah, there could. Obviously, in terms of civil rights and things like that, if there's people awaiting trial in the prisons, you've got to take that into consideration as well. Because, if you turn around and kind of wait and do nothing, these people are sitting there on remand, which is a kind of dangerous kind of way to go down the road as well. So I think it's getting the balance right. They're going to have to have the serious conversations, which is what they're doing. So it may be possibly, going down the line for, the more immediate cases, doing virtual video link, which they can do in terms of witnesses. So it's just on a different scale in terms of juries. And maybe the kind of less serious cases be able to kind of just hold off on them in the meantime, because we don't know when really lockdown's going to kind of be over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a challenging thing. Obviously, as you say, there's a backlog builds up. People get stuck on remand, and of course, we're also seeing people being let out of prison already. People on short sentences because the prisons are under so much pressure because of staff having to take time off with being ill. Do you think there's maybe developments that might come out of this where we again look at things like short sentences, where we're looking at how the overall prison population and maybe thinking about reviewing just the whole way that system works?
I think there there's potential for that. I think we do need to review how the whole system works, and this is the ideal opportunity because there's lots of people, especially when it comes to women that are in prison, that their sentences, custodial, if really they're questionable. So it would be good to see a review to see the whole system reviewed. So I think this is the best time to do it. And I would imagine there will be people with short sentences who will be getting released more so at the moment, because as you said, the prisons are under pressure due to the coronavirus affecting them in terms of staff shortages and things. And so it's interesting times, but I think it's another part of our society that needs to get reviewed and kind of pull into the modern days, and maybe look at how we punish people, or I don't know. Prison's not always the answer to crime. There's lots of other crimes are committed for various reasons, and maybe we need to kind of start looking down that road as to why crimes are committed, and certain crimes especially, and maybe start kind of saying, is prison the answer, or is there other ways that we can go down? Other routes to go down? I don't know.
Yeah, well, we know, for example, that where universal basic incomes have been trialled, crime does tend to fall. Poverty is usually cited as a major cause of crime, so that's one thing to think about. But we are moving on now to the United States, where New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said today that he would refuse any order by President Donald Trump that would begin the process of reopening the economy before it was safe to do so without reigniting the coronavirus outbreak in his state. Cuomo and the governors of 6 other northeastern states said yesterday they would formulate a regional plan to gradually lift social distancing restrictions that have shut down non-essential businesses and schools. Health officials credit the shutdown with slowing the spread of the virus in New York. On the Pacific Coast, the governors of California, Oregon, and Washington state said they also would take a regional approach, but cautioned that any large-scale reopening would depend on a decline in the rate of spread in their area. Soon after the announcements, Trump asserted that he had the ultimate authority to reopen the largely shuttered economy, even though he earlier had deferred to state governors in putting social distancing orders in place. At his Monday press briefing, Trump pushed back against the actions of governors in determining when and how to reopen the economy, saying, "The President of the United States calls the shots." He said they could not do anything without his approval. And once again, we come to it's more really than a question of constitutional niceties in the states, where in theory the president is not in charge of the governors. But Trump does seem to have this attitude that he has absolute power. What do you make of this story?
Yeah, I was reading up on this today, but then again, it's Trump, isn't it? He seems to think he's the be-all, end-all and the absolute power. And it's very much, I am the president, therefore what I say goes. And the Constitution in America is about balancing of power. The lovely quote I liked from Andrew Cuomo was, "We don't have a king in this country. We didn't want a king, so we have a constitution," which is very true for America. But Trump seems to think being the president, it means that he's got the final say in what happens. He's behaving like a dictator, really. So it's good to see that the governors are not putting up with his ego, and they're going to do what's right for the states that they're in charge of and the people that they are responsible to. So, this is going to be interesting when Trump finds out that he has no power over them.
Yeah, I mean, it says something, I think, doesn't it, that the Trump didn't want to issue a lockdown order himself, left it to the states to make their own decisions, left the planning for a crisis like this largely to the states, having abandoned the federal agency that was planning for pandemics. And yet now, once they're in the middle of the crisis, he steps in and says, "Oh no, you can't do what you think's right anymore. You have to listen to me." Where do you suppose he thinks people? What do you think he thinks people think when he hears them, when they hear him, rather?
I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't stop laughing because it's just he's just ludicrous. He's not a leader. He's he's a businessman, and in terms of being a businessman, I mean, he believes that he is up at the top of the mound or the throne or the ladder, and everybody else is below him, and what he says goes, and everybody should. I imagine Trump must think that everybody must bow to him, but then again, the reason he done that with the States is so that if the lockdown went into play and basically it went wrong, he could then wash his hands of any responsibility. He's very shrewd when it comes to that. But yeah, I think the next couple of days, we keep saying about Trump, it's the same thing. Yeah, the next few days are going to be interesting, and are we surprised? And he just keeps going, and it's the same stuff over and over. It's just a different person, but it's the same sort of story over and over again, where he's trying to exert his power and this ego that he's got over somebody else, and this is him doing it again. It's the same story, just a rerun of the same story, just a different person and a different state.
And something I noticed, I saw somewhere online in the last couple of days, a study showing that trust in the media had fallen drastically during this crisis. How much do you think that is going to make it more difficult for American citizens with Trump and for British citizens with Boris Johnson and the British government? How much more difficult do you think it will be to force those people to take some accountability over their decisions around the coronavirus when we're seeing media that are doing such a patchy job in even reporting what's happening, let alone asking the difficult questions of the politicians?
Yeah, this is a concern, isn't it? Especially, with the likes of Trump and the UK government, Boris Johnson, and that. None of the media are holding them to account or asking the difficult questions. I think we're going to have to maybe look internationally and hope that maybe internationally they'll be held to account. But I hope people themselves have got enough. I mean, people are not silly, they know what's going on. So I just hope that people band together and be able to hold them to account. But yeah, the media has. Honestly, they've let the newspapers and that have just really let down the people. They really have, by not asking the difficult questions about why the UK was so slow in reacting to COVID-19, what's going on with the PPE, all these things. They're part of this. They've got to be held accountable as well, because they've not maybe directly been part of it, but they've been indirectly. I mean, that's their job as journalists, to question the politicians and say, why is this not happening, or why is this happening? That's what we've always trusted our journalists to do in the past. But now with the wonderful age of internet and social media, we've got a whole load of amazing and freelance journalists and bloggers and things who do ask these questions, but the problem is they don't get a chance to speak to the politicians directly. So it's going to be difficult. I think this is where we're going to have to hope that international bodies maybe step in and ask our politicians, our governments, as to why they made these decisions. Yeah, I mean, Broadcasting Scotland will do whatever we can to keep digging into some of these issues. But yeah, it does require the whole news media apparatus of the country, and we just encourage all those others to step up and do more of the
the hard work that we can't necessarily afford to do or don't have the manpower to do. But we do move on though. The number of new cases of COVID-19 is easing in some parts of Europe, including Italy and Spain, but outbreaks are still growing in Britain and Turkey, the World Health Organization said today. The overall world outbreak, 90% of cases are coming from Europe and the United States of America, so we are certainly not seeing the peak yet, WHO spokeswoman Dr. Margaret Harris told a briefing in Geneva. The WHO will issue guidance to member states later, listing 6 steps that they need to ensure that they have in place before starting to ease any restrictions, she said. The most important one is your transmission controlled? The United States has the largest epidemic currently and has been a fantastic partner, in addition to being the largest donor to the WHO, Harris said. There will always be criticisms of organisations. It's important to listen to criticism, especially constructive criticism, she said, and our work will go on regardless of any kind of issues. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, WHO Director General, voiced confidence yesterday that the United States would continue funding his UN agency, despite President Donald Trump's criticism of the WHO's handling of the pandemic. On vaccines, Harris said, "We really shouldn't be expecting to see the vaccine for at least 12 months or longer." And this, I think, was a wee bit of bridge building there between the WHO and Trump. Trump has attacked the WHO on a number of occasions for being too aligned with China. Of course, he's not happy that America is the biggest contributor to the UN, to UN agencies like the WHO. But see the WHO there trying to smooth things over a little bit with the states. What do you make of that bit, first of all?
I'm not surprised. You know, with Trump, he's like a petulant child throwing his toys out his pram, really. You know, I give X amount of money and they don't do this. But yeah, the WHO have got to try and they've got to be able to work with all leaders regardless of their behaviour, and yeah, Trump's probably proven to be a difficult one, really, isn't he?
Yeah, and the WHO has also, it's been criticised, especially by Trump, but by others as well, for being very close to China, for kind of sticking with the Chinese line initially at the end of last year, that this wasn't necessarily transmissible to humans. And then also members of the WHO have been criticised for skirting round difficult questions about Taiwan, for implying that Taiwan was part of China, showing Taiwan as part of China on certain maps that they've produced, and then avoiding questions about Taiwan, which has handled its outbreak incredibly well. Despite not being as an independent from China. What do you think of those kind of criticisms? Do you think the WHO has deserved those criticisms?
Probably have. They probably have. Because at the end of the day, yeah, especially with Taiwan, they should know better. But in terms of working quite closely with China at the start of this, they had no choice. That's where the virus, or the first cases of the virus, showed up. So they had to work closely with China. And the thing is, as well, we all know how difficult, I'm going to use the word, China can be, because, you know, all it takes is one wrong move and China could have shut everybody out and we wouldn't have got as much information. So a bit like Trump, I would imagine if it happened over there, they would have been the same kind of, they would have had to have kind of cozied up to a certain degree to kind of get the information that they need and, and find out more about this virus and get their hands on the data. And sometimes, even in business, you've got to, it happens in everyday life where we've got to kind of, have these relationships that you might not necessarily be comfortable with, but in order to get the data, especially when there's life and death, situations with COVID. But yeah, they do. Obviously, there's questions got to be answered. WHO are not perfect. They have made mistakes as well in this. And they've got to answer these questions, and they've got to be held accountable as well. Taiwan has dealt with this really well. There's a lot of countries out there that have dealt with this outbreak really, really well, and then there's the countries that haven't. And there's got to be questions at the end of this as to why certain countries coped magnificently and were prepared and done everything and protected lives, and then there was the other countries that didn't prepare, who, whether it was through arrogance or they were ill-informed, I don't know. And these things have got to be answered as we move along on this. I know we're not out of it yet, but they do need to start asking these questions of governments. Especially because we don't know how this pandemic's going to end. Nobody has got the end answer to this one. We don't know,
Well, yeah, that's the other thing that came out of this, saying that a vaccine is probably still a year away.
Yeah, so you're talking. That's one thing the WHO have said right from the day one, that there was going to be no vaccine. They reckon it would be, about 12 to 18 months for a vaccine. They've always kind of maintained that kind of timescale. They've not tried to allude to anything else, but yeah, I think they need to start kind of talking about, said the end game, but they need to kind of work out how they're wanting this to end, how they're wanting it. Is it vaccinating everybody? Is it herd immunity? Is it what's the end strategy? And also as well getting the economies back on track as well. Because they can't just keep everybody in limbo. And what's happening is people are getting kept in limbo, and that's not good for mental health. It's not good for a lot of things. So they need to start kind of having these other discussions. We all know about it. We're all aware. We've all been hopefully educated enough in COVID-19. So we need to start having the discussions about where we go from here. And that includes the WHO and our governments individually.
Yep. And just moving on now, and back in Westminster, the new Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has ordered an immediate review into a leaked internal report into anti-Semitism in the party, which concluded that factional hostility to his predecessor, Jeremy Corbyn, hampered efforts to tackle the problem. Starmer and his deputy, Angela Rayner, said yesterday that an independent investigation would examine the leaking of the 860-page document, details of which emerged over the weekend, as well as its contents, including the wider culture and practices it refers to, and the background and circumstances in which the report was commissioned and the process involved. The report uncovered many failings in the process for tackling anti-Semitism complaints before Jenny Formby, the current General Secretary, took over in 2018. It said there was an abundant evidence of a hyper-factional atmosphere prevailing in Party HQ in this period, which appears to have affected the expeditious and resolute handling of disciplinary complaints. It was intended to be submitted as an annex to the Equalities and Human Rights Commission's inquiry into Labour's approach to dealing with anti-Semitism. It is understood that it will now not be submitted. The report says it found no evidence of anti-Semitism complaints being treated differently from other forms of complaint, or of current or former staff being motivated by anti-Semitic intent. We have also asked for immediate sight of any legal advice the Labour Party has already received about the report, Starmer and Rayner said in a statement. In the meantime, we ask everyone concerned to refrain from drawing conclusions before the investigation is complete, and we will be asking the General Secretary to put measures in place to protect the welfare of party members and party staff who are concerned or affected by this report. And Sam, this seems to be a story that has been dragging on forever, and honestly, I'm not even sure how big of a problem it ever was, let alone how big of a problem the processing of complaints was and all this. What do you make of this story that's come out today?
Yeah, it seems to be kind of going on and on and on, doesn't it? I don't know. If they're going to do an investigation into it, then I hope they get out of it what they want. Yeah, it just seems to drag on and on and on. I think we're just going to have to, as one of these ones, we're going to have to sit back and wait and see and just report on it as the information comes out.
Yeah, yeah. The ongoing civil war in the Labour Party just keeps rumbling on, I guess. And this
That's it.
this anti-Semitism
Stop.
question, as I say, it's not something I'm aware of. I have genuinely never been conscious of anti-Semitism from anyone that I know. But clearly, it's a problem for some people, and the Labour Party clearly still struggling to get that story out of its own internal difficulties. We will obviously keep an eye on that as it develops.
Yeah.
But finally today, commenting on this week's accident and emergency statistics, Health Secretary Jeane Freeman said the A&E waiting time figures for the week ending April 5th show that 92.7% of people were seen and treated within 4 hours. This is due to the continued hard work and dedication of staff in our NHS who are providing an exceptional level of care during these extraordinary times. Each and every one of you has my very grateful thanks. While members of the public are continuing to listen to advice and only going to A&E if illnesses are immediate or life-threatening, I would like to remind people not to ignore early warning signs of serious conditions. If you have new symptoms, then it's vital you get this checked out, either by contacting your GP or, if symptoms are urgent, by attending A&E. We are working closely with health boards and partnerships to ensure robust plans are in place to strengthen capacity and minimise the impact of COVID-19 across the health system. And Sam, this is something that we've talked about a few times here. The A&E performance is excellent right now. Partly, we guess, people are avoiding going if they don't absolutely need to. But we do have to stress that if you have a problem, if you have a heart attack, if you have a stroke, if you have some other urgent problem, A&E is still open and still working, and you can still go and get dealt with.
Yeah, there seems to be, it's a double-edged sword, doesn't it? In one hand, you're like, oh, that's really good, they're performing really well. And then in the other hand, you're kind of asking the question, is there people maybe doing without medical treatment because they're maybe scared of going up to A&E, or maybe they don't want to bother them, which is one that I've heard a few people saying that, I'm fine, I'll just leave it, I don't want to bother the doctor, or I don't want to go to out hours, or I don't want to phone NHS because they're busy now with COVID. And that's very nice, but however, not good, because there are still other illnesses and things out there that we can still catch, that we can still get ill, heart attacks and strokes, especially at the moment, if people are suffering from a lot from stress and anxiety just now. So yeah, people, anything at all, you need to be seeing somebody. It doesn't matter how stressed, that's what the NHS is there for. And I'm sure the doctors and nurses would rather see people appearing there at the early stages of something than waiting because they don't want to bother them because they're under stress with COVID-19. And it's getting that message across. It's getting that wee balance at the moment of what, when something you do really need to go, even if you're not sure, just phone up NHS 24 or phone your GP, because the GP surgeries are still opened at the moment as well.
Absolutely, yeah. We've heard obviously that routine screenings for things like breast cancer, bowel cancer have been suspended, but that doesn't mean that, for example, if you find a lump in your breast, you shouldn't contact your doctor. If you speak to your GP, they can talk to you over the phone. They may invite you in for a consultation, but all of those kind of urgent treatments are still available. When we would urge you, if you have any symptoms of that, of anything that you're concerned about, speak to your GP, speak to NHS 24, or if it is urgent, then go to A&E. The last thing we want is people suffering unnecessarily because they're afraid of overloading the NHS. One of the reasons that the NHS has suspended all of its other work just now is so that they can make sure that they are dealing with the things that are essential right now, which obviously is COVID-19, but it's also cancers, heart attacks, strokes, all of these kinds of things that can happen to any of us at any time. So please do look after yourself. That is all we've got time for tonight. I'd like to thank Sam very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have her. And we'd also like to thank you at home for joining us. You're the reason that we make these shows, and it wouldn't be worth doing them if you weren't there to watch. So if you're able to support us, if you're able to give a wee something back to the channel, we would be very grateful for that. So if you're able to, please go to broadcastingscotland.scot/register. Sign up as a supporter there, and your £5 a month will make a huge difference to the quantity, the quality, and the type of programmes that Broadcasting Scotland can produce. If you're not able to support us financially, then we do understand. We know times are very tough for a lot of people right now. But you can still help us by following us online. Follow us on Twitter at BroadcastScot. You can also find us on Facebook. And from there, you can share the programmes around, let people know what Broadcasting Scotland is, why you watch it, why you think it's important that Scotland has an independent broadcaster like this. And finally, if you'd like to get involved in Broadcasting Scotland, there are always jobs to be done, whether as journalists putting together shows like tonight's, or whether it's working behind the camera, operating the cameras, operating our sound system, editing, all these kind of jobs, or whether it's being on camera. There's always a role for more people to be on our list of presenters, just in case someone like me or Gordon or Sam gets ill and can't make it to the show. We do need a stack of other presenters, and we want to create fresh talent, and there's always opportunities for that. So if you are interested, please do let us know. But that is, as I said, all we've got time for. So thanks once again to Sam Payton. As I said, always a pleasure to have you, Sam. And thanks again to you. I'll be back again tomorrow at 7 for another Scotland at 7. But until then, I've been Kenny McBride. This has been Scotland at 7 on Broadcasting Scotland. Have a great night.